Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to another ZingTrain webinar. I'll give people just a couple of moments to filter in here. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, welcome. Hi, everyone. Hi, Laura. Hi, thank you all for coming today. I'll get things started here with a couple of housekeeping items. Today, our webinar is Games to Hit Your Goals. I'm Katie Alexander, and I am the community builder here at ZingTrain, and I will be your host for the hour. And I'm very excited to be here with ZingTrain trainer Joanie Hales. She will be, doing all of our content today. We also have Mara Ferguson, who is our keynote liaison. She is behind the scenes, monitoring our chat and all of the questions that you might have over the hour with me. We are all coming to you live from ZingTrain at Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we always love hearing where other people are tuning in from. So if you would like to drop your location in the chat, that's at the bottom of your screen, be great to say hey, and then you might find some neighbors and you can say hi to them too. So before we dive in, I have 3 helpful tips so that we can make the most of our time together. So the first one is the format of today's webinar. Joanie's going to be here presenting for a bit, and then we will leave time at the end for Q&A. And we'll be collecting any of your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom. So please submit any and all questions that you have there. It's another button on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll do our best to get to as many of them as we can today. If we cannot answer all of the questions, or if there's something that just needs more than we can offer in the hour, we will provide resources in a follow-up email that you will receive tomorrow. The second thing is that there is closed captioning. If you'd like to turn it on, Mara is going to drop details in the chat about having closed captioning for this webinar. And then the last thing is that we are recording, because we will send out this recording along with the slides that Joanie is going to share in the follow-up email tomorrow. And then this webinar will also live on zingtrain.com, our website, alongside so many other free resources and webinars that you can check out there too. So that's all for me. And I'll turn things over to Joanie, and I'll see you again for the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Good morning or afternoon, or I guess it can depend on where you are tuning in from. Nice to see lots of familiar names in the chat. Thank you for saying hello. So as was said, my name is Joanie. I'm a trainer here at ZingTrain. I've worked at Zingerman's for just shy of 21 years. I got my start working at our Roadhouse, was there for about 13 years. I've been at ZingTrain for almost 8. I now regularly teach open book management, and a big piece of that is mini games and using games to hit your goals. And I love talking about open book management with folks who are already open book, those who are interested, those who are just dipping their toe into it. So I'm really excited that all of you are here today. I know that I have a lot to share, and I want to be able to answer any questions that you all may have at the end. So let's kind of jump right into it. So I want to start out just by sharing a very brief introduction to what open book is, just so I can make sure that we're all speaking the same language. And I think it helps give foundation for why and how we use mini games in the context of open book management. So first, I think there's a common misconception that people think open book management literally just means we open the books, or that it can mean full transparency. I will say that it does not just straight equal transparency. Without training, without education, most people will have no idea what the information in those open books is actually telling them, let alone what they should do with it or could do with that information. So letting people see the books is part of open book, but it goes way beyond that. We have defined open book management as being a system that we use to run the business. It's actually more about management than it is just about the financials. People think open book, they think finance. but it is cultural. It's about all elements of the business, not just the end kind of bottom dollar. We think it's all about getting everyone on the team to work together to run the business. Our weekly open book meetings that we call huddles, we actually say that is where we run the business, and it's open to everyone in the organization to attend. They can see those key pieces of what it means to run the business really well. And we think open book is all about looking forward and working together to try to win. We talk about future actions that we're going to take. How can we make the business succeed? How can we help the business be more successful? So to that end, that it's everybody playing this game together, we also really need to teach people what we expect from them around open book, or what those expectations are. So we use our 3 steps to great finance to give some very clear expectations. And I will say, and kind of call myself out, I know I just said it's not about the finances or just about the finances. The name, or the title of 3 Steps to Great Finance, it's actually a bit of a holdover from our early days of open book, when it really was much more financially focused. The principles are still the same, but we now think it's the 3 Steps to Great Open Book. Although the name has been around for so long, we're probably not, I know we're not going to change it. It's still the 3 Steps to Great Finance, but they work in other areas, not just the financials. The 3 steps to great finance, the reason I want to cover them is because they're actually the same 3 steps that we use to plan games or run mini games. So step number 1 is to know and teach the rules. And the idea of knowing and teaching the rules, it's predicated on the fact that not everyone has a business degree or has experience running a business. So the rules in which the business is running with or running through, they don't know them. And I like to think of this kind of like, if you remember playing a new game with siblings or a friend, and then somebody who's playing the game starts to change the rules, or they make them up on the spot, and then you feel like, but I don't know how to play it that way, and this isn't making sense to me. And if you ever find yourself in those situations, you tend to want to stop playing the game because you don't understand it. The same is true in work and in business and in our organizations. So we want to teach people what the rules are so we can all speak the same language and play by the same rules. The second step, I think a critical part of playing any game, is keeping score. We want to know how we're doing. We want to know what targets we're trying to reach. I think traditional financial documents, ones that typically come out a month or even a quarter later, that say this is what we did last quarter or even last year, they don't give us information in the moment to be able to say, this is the behavior change that we need to see, or this is how we're doing. So we need to keep score in real time so people know where they can work a little bit harder, or where they can focus their energy or their attention. And then lastly, the third step is, I think very importantly, where games come in, we want to share the success. If a team helped us achieve the goals, we believe it's the right thing to do to share the benefits of that. And this doesn't necessarily mean bonuses or just random kind of cash handouts. This is the kind of reward or sharing the success that we're all working towards. This is something people know that we're going to get at the end of it. They know what the success looks like. They know what the prize is going to be, and they know how hard they need to work to get there. When we do that, we're getting people focused into the same place. So it's been very beneficial. So as I said, I share these 3 steps to great finance because they are the same steps for great games. Before I go any further, I'd love if you would type into the chat kind of a yes or a no. How many of you already use mini games in your workplace? How many of you will use mini games? Love it, Ian, thank you. Very occasionally. Mostly people say no, or sometimes, not often. Maybe you have, fantastic. Not part of the hiring process you're trying to start. Okay, hopefully this will give you some common language, maybe during shoulder seasons. Okay, great. It's good for me to have a sense of people's experience with it. If you do already use mini games in the workplace, this might add to your knowledge of it or give you some new ideas. If you don't, hopefully this will share the framework of saying this is how we could start doing it. So with creating mini games, or the steps, I already shared this. They are to know and teach the rules. They are to keep score. They are to share the success. Same steps as great finance. Before we talk about those 3 steps, though, I want to just quickly talk about why we run them, because I do think a lot of organizations don't always use them as a tool as effectively as they can or as often as they can. It can feel like it's this big thing to try to put into place, but when we run games really well, I think there's huge benefits to the organization. So the reasons that we choose to run mini games at Zingerman's, first is that it gets the team to focus on a particular task or a particular issue or have the same goal for a specific amount of time. I think it's very common that different team members are often prioritizing different issues, or what they think is most important is where they're going to put their attention and someone else is going in this direction. And I think that that can sometimes lead to a whole lot of not truly excelling in any one area. We're doing pretty well in lots of them, but there's not one area that we're really seeing a lot of improvement or benefit. An effective mini game really helps the team focus on that one common goal, and it's showing and telling people what and where we want them to prioritize their time and their attention. Games also help staff members learn to pull together, right? We're working on this agreed upon goal, so we're acting and playing as a team. We have found mini games are actually a really great way to help people get past some of the day-to-day conflicts that can happen at work, or if there's ever been a little bit of tension. Playing a mini game is getting everyone's focus together. It's getting everyone rowing in the same direction. It gives everyone something larger to be working on rather than sometimes just their own job or their own tasks. I also think you just learn to rely and depend on your team in different ways, and it can really strengthen a team when we play a game together. We will also run mini games to help us take advantage of different opportunities. So it can help focus the staff on problem issues or target areas, but sometimes we just have an opportunity that if we want to take advantage of whatever this opportunity might be, running a mini game will help with that. An example that we use, we worked several years ago with a co-op grocery store. They had an opportunity to buy a large amount of produce, peaches specifically. They could buy a way bigger amount of peaches than they typically purchased at a really great price from a local farmer. But of course, with produce, they're going to buy all of this, but then they have a set window to be able to sell it when it's still going to be good, right? It's still going to be a good product for people. So they wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. They purchased the peaches at this low price. Then they ran a mini game around it. And it wasn't just the produce section. They got everyone in the co-op involved. Yes, produce was building displays of peaches, but then the meat counter was suggesting peach salsa anytime somebody purchased a steak. The health and beauty section was suggesting products that had peaches as ingredients or scents, and then had displays of peaches. So the whole team got to come together. They were able to get a large amount at a lower price, and it was a great way for them to take advantage of that opportunity. I think mini games also are more fun. It's more fun to be part of a winning team. It feels good when you're winning. I think once you've had that taste of winning as well, it makes you want to keep winning more. I think that positive momentum can continue when they win one game, they want to try something else. It's a way to just continue to make the team's success go even higher, because winning teams really like to keep winning. And even the least competitive person, and I would say like on a competitiveness scale, I might be on the low side. I think my coworkers might agree with that. But I like to win mini games. I like to win with my coworkers. That feeling of winning makes me want to continue to work hard at whatever our goal actually was. And while winning does feel really good, I think mini games also are important because they teach the pain of losing. And losing, of course, is not fun, but I think when we lose as a team, it pushes us to try harder next time. I think there can be lots of lessons that we learn when we fall short. If we do end up losing a mini game, we can take some of that pain we feel from losing and push us to be better the next time. So teaching the pain of losing, I don't always think that's a bad thing. We tend to learn more if we've made a mistake or if we lose. And just as step 3 is all about, We run mini games because it gives us an opportunity to share the winnings with other people. Games help us share that success back with people. When the team wins, everyone gets to win. The department, the business is better off. I think in the long run, oftentimes our customers win too, because we've often fixed an issue or we have an opportunity we can pass on to them. And as it's more fun to win as a team, it's really fun to share the winnings as well. So that's why we choose to run mini games. Having talked about that, let's talk about how we actually run them on a regular basis. So going into these 3 steps, step 1 is the rules. So for a game to be truly effective, we all need to be playing by the same rules. If we have different sets, we usually don't know who is winning, who is losing. It's easy to grow frustrated. We can easily lose momentum when everyone is speaking a different language and having different rules. I have 2 kids who are now at really fun ages where we get to play games that I remember playing as a child. And so it's like the rules that I remember. But I swear they are learning all these crazy rules from school and other friends that I have never heard of before. Just over this past weekend, my 9-year-old and I were playing checkers. And however, the checkerboard was working, he got to a point where he had made it across and he goes, "Oh, I get my super king now." And I was like, "What's a super king? Like, I can certainly king you, that's fine. But a super king is something he learned from his cousin, and it allowed you to do lots of crazy things on the board that I had never heard of." And I found myself getting very frustrated at my 9-year-old for not playing by the rules. And not that I felt like I needed to win, but I wanted to play the right way. And he's my child. I love him dearly. Imagine playing a game with somebody who you're not as close with. The frustration can go through the roof. So make sure we're speaking the same rules. So as we set our rules, the first thing you can do is define the key issue. What is the key focus? If you are not sure where you want to start with a mini game, you can make a list of all the key issues in the department or in the organization. Maybe it's things like the number of mistakes that are happening. It could be food waste, employee tardiness, breakage costs, service scores, sales, right? List them all out and then make a choice. What do you want your game to positively impact? I think it can be very tempting to say, I want to fix all of them right now. But picking the most critical issues or the ones that are most important, that way you can really focus the game on that one thing. Or asking yourself, what issue will have the biggest impact if we don't meet our goal? That's usually a pretty good indicator to us. That might be where we want to spend our time. So that's a great place to start. So define the key issue or choose what the focus is. Once you have that, you want to identify what number you are targeting. Is it a percentage of something? Are you trying to improve sales? So you're going to be looking at dollar amounts. Is it a count of something? This is essentially deciding how are you going to measure the success of the key issue. If you don't have a target number or you can't think of what that would be, I would say go back and look at the key issue and say, maybe I want to change what this is. Because if I can't come up with a target, it might not be the game that we want to play. Once you have the target, I think it's also important to determine your baseline. So look at historical benchmarks, business standards, you can look at industry standards. Where are you starting from with the issue? And then what is success for the game? When we know our baseline or our starting point, we can then set that stretch goal, I think, a little bit easier. The viability of the game is asking yourself, what is the benefit to the organization? If we reduce mistakes by 10%, how much does that save the business? Because what we've experienced, like if you're trying to run a game that has a cash payout, that's going to be sharing the winnings, some type of dollar amount going out to the team. But winning the game doesn't actually generate the funds to pay people, and the business will lose money by having to pay out the winnings. That's not a viable game. So do a math check. Are the calculations easy to do? Can anyone do them? Run it past fellow managers or managing partners or the accountant. They can see some of the pitfalls or the opportunities that maybe you haven't seen in the past, but make sure that it makes sense. I think this is also a decent time to say, we think really great games are often self-funding. So by improving whatever number we're trying to, we've actually saved enough to pay for whatever the costs are to run the game. Because the benefit or the key thing around it is If the game doesn't benefit the organization or the department, it's just not going to be a viable game to play. We want to figure out that viability early on in the process, because if we roll a game out and then we realize we've won, but we can't afford to pay everybody what the prize was, it doesn't feel great for anyone else. So make sure that it is viable. Once that has been checked, then we want to set who are the key players. Who's going to get to play in this game? I think inclusiveness is beneficial. We will always try to include more people, not less, in our games. I think sometimes the more people, the better. We generally say that people need to be out of our orientation period, but overall, we want everyone to be playing the game. I think it can make people feel bad to be left out, or it can spread kind of disinterest. We want to build excitement and build a team dynamic. So we want to include more people. I will say, I remember when I worked at the Roadhouse, one of our restaurants, we would make this mistake of not being very inclusive. So we would play a game around sales and only have the servers play. So on this one shift, only the servers are focused on selling how many desserts they could sell. The prize was going to be this. Well, everyone else in the restaurant that night had no interest in necessarily helping, because they're like, well, what do I get if this happens? So I'm not saying not to play those types of games, but also think about where can we make sure that everyone has a chance to win. I think this is also especially important if there is already any type of tension or some struggling team dynamics. If the front of the house always gets to win something and the back of the house never does, it's going to only create more tension. So think about who will play and think about being as inclusive as you can. Another piece of the rules is to set a clear length, have a clear start and end date. You can always renew a game, but people will lose interest if it runs on for too long or if it runs on indefinitely. So it can help create a sense of urgency or that one-time only opportunity. And the length is set dependent on how big or small the issue is that you're fixing. If your issue is on decreasing food cost or improving client retention, something that takes a bit more time, you're not going to make it a daily game. That might be a month or 2 months or even a quarter. Smaller issues, you might play weekly or a shift game. You can have a different mix of lengths at any point. I think that can be helpful as well. And then finally, what are your compelling reasons for the game? When we're asking adults and the people we work with to make a change in their behavior, we need to tell them why we want to make the change. And giving some really compelling reasons about how playing this game can help get them excited about what the future holds after we win it. So it could be that when we play this game, we're going to get happier customers. We're going to get improved employee morale. We're going to get a cash reward. But by sharing those compelling reasons, we're getting people excited and on board to do it. Before I talk about step 2, I want to share a couple of game examples with you. So this first one is called Nothing But Net. This is actually a game that our accountant led at ZingTrain, and it was all around improving the financial literacy of the team. We called it Nothing But Net because it was part of a bigger game called Open Book Madness, which was a play on March Madness because it was happening in March a few years ago. You can see our compelling reason to run the game was to encourage participation in the open book tune-up. The entire organization was doing the tune-up, so this was a way to keep great finance front and center in our third quarter. Dan, our accountant, he even included a vision of what a successful game would look like, what a successful win would be. That was a great way for us as players to get excited about playing this game because we could see a picture of what the end goal was. And then the rules. So what's the game? Clearly laid out. You can see our goal of scoring 150 points between at least 10 staff members. Our time frame was listed on there. The key number we were going for and who the players were, that was the entire team. It was all laid out right there. So some nice, clear rules that we could follow. Another example that I found from the deli, it's a game they ran a few years ago. They were having trouble with order accuracy. So if you think about targeting a key issue, right? Order accuracy in a food business, in a deli, is a really big deal. If people are not getting the sandwiches that they ordered, they're only going to come back so many times. We need to make sure we're delivering what people actually order. So the game that they ran was called No Sandwich Left Behind. You could see that the data showed that order accuracy mistakes were actually getting higher. So that was their compelling reason for wanting to run this game. And their rules, what's the game? It included what the goal was, which was to have no sandwich made incorrectly or left out of a bag for here or to go for 7 days in a row. That was the goal. The game was going to start on a Monday. It actually didn't have an end date because it would keep going until they reached the 7 days. They would keep playing this until they hit that target. The key number was the number of days no sandwich was left behind, and the players were the sandwich line. A little deeper into the no sandwich left behind, into the rules, they wanted to be very clear about what would count for a sandwich left behind and what would not. And I just love that they clearly spelled it out for everyone who was going to be playing the game, because it leaves very little to interpretation in a good way. I think the level of detail helps keep them really honest and accountable to the game, while also saying if the guests made the mistake by not asking for, let's say, no mustard, we wouldn't hold that against ourselves. We would say it was still made correctly. So the more details you can add to take the gray area out of it, I think sometimes the better. So lots of details in there. These will be in the slides that we send in the follow-up, so you can read through it even more so. And then here is a game that was about writing what we call code red and code greens at Zingerman's. A code red is writing up a customer complaint. A code green is writing up a customer compliment. They laid out how to score points. They had a blurb about need a reminder. We'll even zoom in. Need a reminder about the rules, ask a teammate. So the rules aren't even necessarily all listed out on here, but it does say where to find the information. So another nice example of putting the game kind of up on a board where you can see how you are going to play it. I will say the last thing I want to say about step one of the rules is make sure the rules are clear, make sure they're easy to follow. I remember once also at the Roadhouse, we ran a game based on Dr. Seuss's Oh, the Places You Will Go. And if you think of that book, it has like a long winding kind of road pathway, very colorful. There was this beautiful scoreboard made, and the team that worked on it put so much time and effort into it, but the rules were not clear or easy to follow at all. There were so many steps and side rules, and it kind of became, unfortunately, very confusing and kind of a mess. And it felt so in depth that I remember there was one point, it was like, did I just score a point? I'm not sure. Am I holding a blue pen, but not a black pen? And only if the sun was shining? There was so many stipulations to scoring a point. People liked the idea, but with confusing rules, no one actually got behind playing it. If it takes 3 pages to explain how the game works, think about if other people could actually follow it. So make them clear and simple as you can. Moving to step 2, keeping score. So you've gone through step 1, you have the bones of your game in place. Think about how we're going to keep score. I think this is where it can get really fun. I mean, I think the whole thing is kind of fun, but learning how to keep score or identifying it, you can be creative. So starting with, what is the name of your game? You can be fun. You can be creative. You need to or want to sell it to the people who are going to be playing the game. You can do it on a theme. You can make it super obvious if you want to, but give it a name. Once you have a name, then create the scoreboard. Again, have as much fun as you want with it. I think when it is more fun, people are just more engaged with it. But you can also use something simple if that is more your style. It could be on the wall. It could be on a computer. If it's something around a number or a dollar amount, we're big fans of a thermometer, right? It's pretty simple, pretty universal, and it works, but create the scoreboard. Then give some thought to how will you keep track of the progress of the game? So who is going to update it? How often are they going to update it? And to some degree, I think it can depend on the length or the complexity of the game. If you can rotate who's going to fill it in daily, who's going to fill it in each week. You can give different people the opportunity for ownership. If it's not something most people can do, maybe just consider what you're measuring, or if it's too complicated, maybe make it simpler, or just assign one person. If they're going to be there most of the days, they're going to update this on a regular basis. I think that's fine too. Something that I think can be a good benchmark for the scoreboard is asking yourself, can someone walking in or when they walk by the scoreboard, can they get a gist of your game just by seeing it? And I think that if they look at it and it makes no sense to them, that might give you maybe I need to simplify this a little bit more. So if we can see pretty clearly, I think that makes a pretty solid scoreboard. A couple of examples of scoreboards that we've used in the past. So this is actually back to the first game example. So the Nothing But Net game. So I said it was based on Open Book Madness, which was a play on March Madness. So it makes sense that it was a basketball theme scoreboard. So the scoreboard would live, or it did live, in our shared space, what we call our glass room. It's where we have most of our meetings. We would individually track our scores in what we call a passport, so something we each held on to, but then each team member would mark the number of points earned at the start of each of our weekly huddles, and that would build to our cumulative score. So that's how we would choose to keep score. Our accountant created this by projecting this basketball net onto the wall and tracing it on a flip chart. And then as the net would fill in, we would be able to see our progress and see how we were doing. This is an example from one of our clients. It's a custom designed build team, and I think it was really creative. You can kind of see their personality coming through with it. Their team, or their game name, was called Fill in Your Flippin' Timesheet, which you can probably imagine from the title of the game. They were having a problem with people filling in their timesheets. So they wanted to try to change that. This is put the focus on there. The numbers on the flip phone were each of the weeks that they would play the game. They were going to play it for 9 weeks in total. Red means that they didn't hit it. If you zoom in, or when you want to zoom in, you can see that they did not hit the numbers. Green was going to be when they did hit it. And by the end of the 9 weeks, you would get a chance to see the different colors as they were added. It was a pretty quick visual to see if they were winning or losing. And I think it was pretty fun. Fill in your flipping timesheet with the flip phone. This is an example shared from us from another co-op client. They were running a game around adding new members, and it was a play on the Golden Girls theme song. So they called it Thank You for Being a Mem. So thank you for being a member. Their goal was to get 72 members in 1 month. Each character was a milestone, and they moved up and down the board as they gained new members each day and each week. The prize was going to be a gift card for each cashier, and they ended up winning the game. I think the game also gave the cashiers quite a bit more understanding of what membership entails, and it also gave people more confidence in how to pitch it to customers. So this looks like, poster board, some star stickers, some markers. They were able to create a scoreboard. Last scoreboard example, this actually comes from our office manager here at ZingTrain, Courtney. We just ran a recent sale on our seminars, and Courtney made a scoreboard to see which of our seminars would sell the most from the sale. And the name was the Throwback Grand Prix. The racers were all of our different seminars that we teach. You can see the cars as they moved toward the finish line. And I will say, full transparency, this isn't quite a mini game because there wasn't a prize for us as the team, but I think it's still a great example of having fun with a scoreboard and being creative. I know when I came in each morning of the sale, I looked to see which race car was going to be out in front because it made it more fun. It made it more engaging. So have fun with your scoreboards. The third step is to share the success. So if we're all playing this game, we want to make sure the winnings get to everybody. When people do play the game, they want to know what is going to happen when they win it. So let's tell them from the start, and let's make sure we follow through on it. So when we set up our prize for the mini game, we typically recommend doing something like a partial payout because we want the business to win too. So a rule of thumb that we follow for financial games is aiming for a 60-40 split. So that way the business is going to get most of the benefit, and we're also going to fund some back to the participants. So for example, if we were able to save what it might be, $1,000 by playing this game, we cut $1,000 off of our food cost. $600 would be invested into the business. $400 would be shared out with the rest of the participants. I think that's a great way of just making sure that it is viable and that the business is going to win as well. So that, again, speaks to making sure that it's going to be self-funding. It can also help if you Well, yeah, so building success into the game, the self-funding aspect. You can build in staggered levels of success or different goals. If you hit this level, then you get this prize. If you hit this level, you're going to get a medium prize. But if you keep going and you hit this target, there's going to be an even better prize from there. Or we've had businesses who they will run, if we can go 7 days, we get this. If we can do 14 days, it's going to be this. If we do 21 days, we're going to get this. So that is a way to, I think, keep the momentum going. So consider that as you're setting up your game as well. The individual versus group. So when we run mini games, sometimes there can be a top winner. The one person, if they can sell the most, they get this. And a little competition isn't necessarily a bad thing. I also advise just being careful with that. Sometimes what can happen is it's everyone out for themselves, everyone's prioritizing something that's most important to them, or somebody gets so far out in advance or ahead of everyone else just stops. I saw this happen, it was many, many years ago, again, at the restaurant. There was a very generous wine supplier who wanted us to sell more of their product. So they offered a fantastic prize of a trip for two to Napa for whichever server could sell the most of their wine in this time frame. Well, people got really excited for a little bit. And then some of the complaints started happening. Well, I work lunches. I don't work dinner. So how am I going to ever be as good as someone else or sell as much as someone else? But I didn't work Saturdays. I only worked Mondays and I sell more wine on Saturdays. And we had one server who was just a great salesperson that very early on in the game time frame got so far ahead of everyone else that everyone else was like, well, we're never going to catch up to that person. I'm just going to stop playing. And they did stop playing. So what happened is the person we thought would win won it. But as an organization, we actually sold less of this company's wine because no one else was interested in playing anymore. So the individual prize didn't do so well. What can we win as a group? Right? If we can reach this certain threshold, we all get an opportunity to win something. Or if we reach this threshold, we'll do a drawing to see who might win the main prize. But when we play as a group, I think it can be a little more interesting. People stay, their attention will stay there a little bit more. The getting help from your team, if you do not know what is going to be compelling to them, ask them. Get the team involved. Ask them for help in setting the rewards. I think that'll be a way to help get them really excited about it. I know we ran a game once for managers around completing staff performance reviews, because that was a key issue. We weren't completing the reviews as quickly as we needed to or as timely as we needed to. So our prize was going to be, if we completed all of them within this set time frame, the managing partner was going to wash all of our cars out back one day. We could all bring our cars in and he would wash them for us. And we got really excited about that. And I think that was actually one of us coming up with that prize. I don't think he volunteered to do that. And sadly, we did not get all of our reviews done, so that did not happen. But we were all pretty compelled to try to get them done. And I think we got a lot more completed than if we hadn't have played that game. So get help from the team. Ask. If you feel like you're offering the same thing all the time, ask other people, what other prizes do you think we could do? And also just consider the non-financial rewards. So again, washing somebody's car. It could be we all get, it's kind of financially, but we all get an extra day of paid time off put into our paychecks. It could be we get to have a fun day where we get to go out and do something. There can be things, I know, at our deli several years ago, when they were taking more of a they were in more of a financial slump, they knew there weren't going to be cash rewards for any games that they played. So some of their rewards were everybody gets a box of Sharpies, or everyone's going to get one free coffee drink this month if we hit some of our targets. So you can find different things that will get people excited as well. We also will ask some of our longtime suppliers and vendors and friends if we can do trades. They have shirts or swag or hats, or they might have gift cards that they'll trade for something for us, and we can use those for prizes as well. That's a great way to get some new exciting rewards in for people too. Couple of those game examples, just following up on two of them, how we shared the success. So first, the no sandwich left behind game. So already kind of mentioned in some of their know and teach the rules. But once they got to 7 days, the prize was everybody would get $25 put into their paycheck. Or they could get 50 deli dollars, which was paper money that could be used only at the deli. And they could choose, do you want $25 in your check? Do you want 50 deli dollars? When they got to 30 days, they would double. Everyone would get either 50 in their paycheck or 100 deli dollars. For the nothing but net game that we played at ZingTrain around financial literacy, if we could collectively score 150 points, we would win happy hour food at one of Zingerman's restaurants, Miss Kim. That's one of our favorite places. Pretty much all of us will say, let's go to Miss Kim. If we could get to level 2, that was scoring 150 points and 10 of us complete the passports, the prize would be happy hour food plus a beverage of our choosing. So it was a way to kind of stagger it. And again, Miss Kim is a top highlight for most of us. So we were very compelled at these prizes. So set what your prizes are going to be, let them know in advance. People will make the decision to say, I want to work really hard so we can get that prize or we can get that reward. After we play the game, I think there are some steps of what to do after we play it. So just kind of touching on it quickly. I will admit this isn't something I think we're always great at, but I think building follow-up in, it's just a great way to learn from it. And it's a great way to teach others as well. So first is, it's actually while you're playing it, but take notes. It'll never be fresher in your mind than when you're in the middle of the action. But as it ends as well, how did it go? Did you win? I think it's way easier to play again when it is documented. We have a great game template that we can send as part of the follow-up. And it's my longtime dream that everybody would always follow that template every time they play a mini game. I don't always think that's realistic. It'd be great though, because then we could pull out this binder with all these templates and we could learn from it. We're not there yet, but maybe someday we will be there. But I do think it's easier to play again or some version of it when we have the documentation of these were the rules. This is how we kept score. This is the prize we shared, and this is how it went. Did we win? What did we learn from it? We have, if you're familiar with Zingerman's or ZingTrain, you may have heard our liked best next time tool before. So after you play the game, getting the whole team together and asking them, what did you like best about this game? What are the things that went really well with it? And then asking them, what could we do differently the next time? I think getting the team to answer those questions, we're getting different perspectives and experiences. That's going to help strengthen whatever game we play the next time. They get to feel like they're a part of it. Maybe they're going to spark some ideas for mini games that they want to play too. But debrief and capture all of that feedback as you can. Learning from when it didn't go great, when it didn't go so well. So it's those next times. When people say next time it'd be great if we included the other department, or next time we should only play it for a month rather than 2 months. That's fantastic feedback. Let's learn from that, document it, let's revisit it. It's all fodder for future games. So capture and collect as much of that information as we can. And then celebrate the win. Mini games, they can take a decent amount of work to roll out, especially if they are for bigger issues. So let's celebrate that. Yes, we're sharing the success, but let's also announce it in a weekly huddle or at a team meeting or send an everyone email. Let's congratulate all the players for playing as hard as they did, for seeing whatever our wins were. And let's celebrate. A round of high fives, a pat on the back, doesn't have to be huge, but let's not move on too quickly. We can be guilty of that in our organization. Let's move on to the next thing that we need to focus on. Let's just celebrate this win that we all had together. Let's not move on to business as usual too quickly. Savor in it for a moment. So the steps for great games, we have certainly covered a lot in our time together. So we talked about knowing and teaching the rules of the game. How do we keep score? How do we share the success? We talked about why we run games, because it gets us focused in the same direction. We can use games to hit our goals, set what the goal is, then plan out the game that we want to run to try to get there. We're hopefully all going to play together. We're hopefully all going to win together. We can continue to strengthen our team and how we operate as a team when we play these mini games. I feel like I could talk about using games for hours, but now I do want to turn it over to Katie and see what questions you all have had while I have been talking. So Katie, I will stop sharing and I think turn it back to you.
Oh, thank you. Hi again.
Hi.
Hi. Um, if people, hi everyone. If you do have questions, please, this is the time to submit them. So right now, I have one question for you because one you organically answered in your presentation. So Brooke is wondering, and I think this was touched on too, but you could expand a little bit.
Yeah.
Wondering, does the target have to be a number? And sort of maybe what are some ideas for other ways to think about what targets could be in a mini game?
It's a good question. I think the target, I mean, it's usually a number, but not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a dollar amount. Like I'm thinking oftentimes a target could be a sales number, but it could be a number of surveys that are filled in or the number of people who participate in something. I think we want to know very clearly if we are winning the game or if we are losing the game. So if we don't put a number to it and we say, well, we just want to do better, that's left up for a lot of interpretation. So I'm not sure if I can think of an example. I mean, feel free, Katie, or if Mara has one in the chat of what would be a non-number target. I feel like there's always a number in some way associated with it. I don't know if you'd agree with me, Katie.
Yeah, I also,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't think of something that's so qualitative.
Yeah, Mara
Yeah.
saying, yeah, we quantify those actions. So again, the
Mhm.
number of performance reviews completed in 2 months is a number. We ran a game fairly recently at ZingTrain, which was around getting ZingTrain employees out into our other businesses more frequently, more often. So we tracked the number of meetings we had in other businesses, the number of huddles we attended. So the end target wasn't this. I mean, then I guess there was a target number. We want to go to 10 different huddles. We want to go to this. So it was still number associated. But I think the end goal was us feeling more connected to the rest of Zingerman's. That was the end goal. It wasn't just to sit through something. The goal was the connection. But the target we put into place had a number associated with it.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that's helpful.
Okay, so now we have a question from Ian. There's a little bit of context setting up this. So the organization is very goal oriented, but mostly individuals have their own goals.
Hmm.
The employees are incentivized through commissions that they earn
Yeah.
from closing deals. What ideas do you have that could help bring people together for a game when their individual successes benefit the company, but there's not always a direct benefit to the entire staff other than just there's more revenue generated for the business to be successful?
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, they're already kind of playing their own mini game with themselves. So if they hit their targets, they get their commission. So you could put different kind of qualifiers maybe in there. So if the entire team hits this threshold, then the commissions maybe will get a multiplier or something, but we all need to hit this mark. So I think that in a way helps other people want to help others, or they check in on how other people are doing. Um, or it's not on commissions. Maybe the game is around improving employee morale. And so it's going to be about cultural aspects of the organization. Because maybe if they're already doing their own mini games around commissions, find something else that will maybe help make improvements. Yeah, I might think about that one for a little bit too and send some follow-up thoughts also. Because it's tricky. It's tricky when that stuff is already in place.
Yeah. Those are two great ideas, though. Ways to like boost other elements of the team.
Yeah. I will say,
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes me think about our coffee company. They would run a mini game. I mean, it was kind of like a hybrid mini game, kind of hybrid profit sharing. But in order for any commissions or payments to be paid out, they had a rider in the game that was all about the quality of the coffee score. Nobody would actually get a payout if the quality of the coffee when they were tasting it wasn't up to their standards. So yes, you need to be focused on your own sales and your own number, but you also need to be focused on what's happening in production and how people are making the coffee and what it tastes like, because that impacts your commissions as well. So I think the team found that really helpful to make sure that people weren't going off in one direction too much. There was still this thing that brought everybody back to be centered, to say, we still have to serve some really great coffee in order for this to happen. Hopefully that helps too.
All right, another question from Aaron. Okay. Works at a nonprofit with multiple locations, a library, and they've had mini games where one location will win, but then there's negative feelings because there's negative feelings that there will be negative consequences if the location doesn't win.
Oh,
So how might you handle that situation?
interesting. Negative consequences if somebody doesn't win. I think that could be where, going back to when you kick off the game, having your compelling reasons for why you're doing this in the first place, and then having a vision of what it looks like when one team wins. And part of your vision of success is, yes, one location won, but every team feels really good about the steps or the progress that they did make in whatever this was. So kind of spelling it out that there's not going to be a consequence for this, because that doesn't feel good either. I would say we run mini games with rewards. We don't run them with consequences. So if you don't win, this is what's going to happen. Like, we really focus on what the prize is going to be. And that's been helpful. And consider, is there a way that we can all win? Maybe it doesn't go to just one location. Or again, that thing where all locations need to reach this target and then we take the top one. That way everyone's actually winning or making improvements. Good
Yeah,
question.
great answer. Good. I'm glad that was helpful, Aaron. Okay, from Carol. This is building on what Brooke asked about quantifying things.
Mhm.
What if you have a set number of clients or customers and your goal is to reach out to all of them about a specific issue or update? Similar to the Golden Girls game,
Oh, yeah.
but a broader goal. So the goal is to reach every customer. Would that work as a game in your
Yeah.
experience, or?
Oh, I think so. And I think it would be like, maybe the game is in the time frame. So like, yes, it's an expectation that we need to reach out to all of these customers and tell them about this one thing. Okay, can we do it all within 2 weeks? If we do it within 2 weeks, this will be what the prize is. Sometimes if there's not that time frame, people might just push it off or wait longer. But I think, yes, you could absolutely run a game around it. Yeah.
Good luck, Carol.
Yeah, that could be a fun game.
All right, and then a question from Chelsea. Do we always, or others always, have games that have a direct effect on company numbers, or would you also recommend ever doing fun games that get people more involved, like more culture focused? They're thinking of maybe a wellness challenge.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. When our benefits committee has done games around that. So like, yes, attending different webinars about your health or completing certain things kind of on like a healthy wellness check. You could totally run a game around that. And the final number is not directly related to sales, but it is making happier, healthier people in the organization. So I think that's a great thing to run a game around. Again, it might still be a number where it's the number of things that people do or the number of people who have accomplished something. But the benefit is that we're benefiting ourselves as humans. So yeah, absolutely. Employee morale, company culture, health and wellness, mental health. You could find all sorts of things to run games around like that. Yeah, those are great ideas.
And then from Colette, wondering how to keep games alive. What are
Yeah.
some ways while you're in the game to keep it going and people really engaged?
Couple of things that come to mind for me. One is a length of time. So make sure it's a short enough time frame that people will still be excited by it. If you run a game for 6 months, after 2 or 3 months, people probably aren't going to be thinking about it very much. So look at the length if you find that people aren't talking about it. Having a champion of it is helpful. So who is that person who's going to report out on it once a week or send that email out to make sure people are still focused? Who gives the updates? I think that is really helpful. And then the scoreboard, being in a public place or looking at it on a regular basis, is also another way to keep it front of mind. If it is buried in an email folder or like some Google Drive thing somewhere that no one ever looks at, they're not going to look at it. They're not going to focus on it. So keep it center, whether that is an actual physical space. If you use Slack, having a Slack channel that is all about what the game is and people put their updates in there, because not everybody's working in person if you're all working remotely, right? Find other ways to make sure that people are still talking about it. But I think having the champion is also really helpful.
Yes, I agree with all of that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And related question, Chelsea's wondering, is there ever game fatigue,
Yes.
such as the number of games you're playing at a time or per year, and what are some
Sure.
ways to be considerate about that?
Uh, some of it I think is trial and error. Like I think it's happened to us before. Like, yes, it's like I don't feel like I have capacity to play another game right now. And then we try to push through and it's not very exciting. People don't tend to focus on it a lot. And then we realize, okay, maybe let's just put a pause on the game. And we've done that before. We've said, well, I know we rolled this out, but now we just got this influx of business or some big thing has come in that we really need to focus on. Let's pause the game for a couple weeks. We're going to re-roll it out starting in July. I think that's okay. Or if you notice there's been no traction with it, maybe say, okay, we're going to extend the game by a couple of weeks or by a month, but we're going to put a lot of focus into re-rolling it out. I would say most often we're maybe running one game at a time. There possibly could be two, but then there might be a month or two where we're not running any games. And then we're going to revisit and do another one coming up. So there's no exact science to it. I think it depends on the size of the team, what it is, what's going on in the business, who the champions are, and if they're sharing that excitement with others. It's a good question.
Yeah, these are great questions.
Yeah.
And these are all the questions that I'm seeing.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. I like to just be silent for a moment just in case something else comes through. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here and spending this time with us. It was so fun and inspiring to hear ideas from all over the ZCOB, our Zingerman's community of businesses. I haven't heard some of those games before, so it's just I imagine that it was really fun for everyone else as well, just to get some inspiration and get a really good framework for how to think about creating games in your organizations. So thank you very, very much, Joanie. And also Mara, thank you for rocking out our chat behind the scenes and collecting those questions for me. We always love to hear what you think of what we're providing for you. So we'd love to hear what you thought of the webinar today. If you are tight on time, we do have a quick poll right here in Zoom, so you can rate your experience. 0 is awful, and 10 is that you would highly recommend and had a great time. And then if you have some more time or would like to give a bit more feedback beyond just a number, we do have a quick survey that Mara has dropped in the chat. Thank you very much. And so you can click that and let us know if you have ideas for future webinars. We take all this stuff very seriously. We are here for you. That's what we're doing. So we will be sending out this recording tomorrow and a couple of other resources based around what we talked about and some things that came up in your questions. And then keep a lookout for future webinars in your inbox, future invitations. And again, thank you all so much for spending the hour with us.